Well, hello and welcome to Beyond the Headlines this evening. We are starting a little later than usual for two reasons. We've had to make some program changes. As you would recognize, the death announcements are much longer than they have been probably in our history, and so we have been forced to carry death announcements at 8 o'clock as well as at the regular time. And then this evening we did have some technical challenges. We know that we had a lightning strike today. It has impacted our operations here at the GBN, but we're up and ready to roll. So good night and welcome to another edition of Beyond the Headlines. And for the last year, the main talking point has been COVID-19. At the GBN, we have been trying to expand our lens and cover this issue from varying angles. We like to be positive, and we telling ourselves that we're going into recovery mode. So those of you watching on television, following on our social media platforms, the tagline for this evening is COVID-19 recovery mode. Yes, we are being faithful, we are being positive, and we're telling ourselves that we are in recovery mode. I am pleased to introduce tonight survivors, people who battled COVID-19. When I was speaking with one of the panelists today, he said, I kicked it to the curb. And those are the kinds of success stories that we like to highlight. And I'm going straight to New York to speak this evening with Miss Wendy Ann McGuire. She's a Grenadian living in New York, and she has this bright smile. I'm certain 1 year ago, that smile, she was wishing she could give us that smile. But we're thanking God she's lived to give us that smile. Over in Jamaica, I have one of our producers, I like to call him. He is good on social media, and his name is Christopher McCurdy. I would not tell you what his nickname is until the end of the program. I'll tell you what his nickname is, so we'll just call him Christopher McCurdy, out of the land of wood and water, Jamaica. And we also have another survivor who we're having a little bit of a technical issue with, but hopefully he will be able to show his face. Richard Booker. Richard worked very hard to ensure that he could appear with us this evening, but there's just one slight technical that we're trying to sort through to get Richard to come up on screen. We did do the test with him a few minutes ago, but we're experiencing that, and we will cross that hurdle as we always do every Monday night if we do encounter a challenge. So let's start with Wendy Ann and Christopher McCurdy. Christopher is in Jamaica, as we mentioned. Wendy Ann is in New York. Wendy Ann, you're the shining star out of New York, and
good night, fellow Grenadians. Good night, GBN. Thank you for having me. First of all, I want to say my condolences to all the family members who lost their loved ones. COVID is just sad, and I get very emotional when I have to speak about COVID because it was quite an experience.
So you were struck with or by COVID in what month and what year?
Okay, so I had COVID at the beginning, I would say last year, March. The very first patient we had at the hospital, that's when I got COVID. So at that time, we know we didn't have any treatment. The doctors didn't know what to do. Everybody was still trying to figure out what's going on. So it was a difficult time for me when I had the COVID.
And I'll come back to you, but let's just cross to Jamaica now, and we have Christopher McCurdy. Christopher, tell us about your timelines.
I think greetings, everybody. Greetings from Jamaica. I think I got hit by that COVID somewhere around about mid-February of this year.
Mid-February. And
yes.
When did you start sensing that something was all right?
It was perhaps about, I would say about 5 days into, the first couple of days you felt little tingling in your throat. You wasn't sure what was going on. But at the time, we know that COVID was around. I went through a general election campaign in Jamaica, and I said to myself, if I didn't catch COVID then, when you had thousands of persons up on a boat and I was in the middle of campaigning, then I don't think I'd catch it again. But I was very protective. I wore my mask. I traveled with cases of sanitizers. I stayed away from people as much as I could. But lo and behold, I caught it. But the interesting part about it, though, is when I caught COVID. I wasn't sure if I had COVID. Matter of fact, it took about 8 or 9 days after being very, very ill. I battled through about 14 days before I actually got a test. And the first test I did, I didn't get the result back until perhaps about 2 months down the road, but that's a different story. When I did that first test, I stayed home. I was, medicating, isolating myself, but I was going through a rough period. It was at the end of that period that I actually went into the hospital to be thoroughly checked out. And even then, I did a test and the test came back negative. But the doctors knew that the footstep and the traces that was left tells them that COVID came here. COVID had passed through your body, and then by then the old test I did originally, that result finally came back and said at the time when I did that test I had COVID. So that journey was quite rough.
But so now you're causing me to question. You did not have a diagnosis, but you diagnosed yourself as having COVID-19?
No. The first test I did, that result took a very long time to come back. By the time I got that result back, I was already out of it. I was done. I was good. So when I was ill and I went in, it wouldn't show that you had COVID, because even though you're still not feeling well, you would have not, the test would not show that you were positive. But the original test I did when I just got sick, which I did not get the result back until about a month after, that test showed that at the time I had COVID.
Roger that. Understood. Got that. Let's go back to Wendy Ann. Wendy Ann, so you said it was in the infancy of this, and the very first patient came in. You were on the ward as a nurse, right? And take us through the stages and the progression here.
Okay, so the very first patient came in. At the time, the hospital didn't start doing COVID screening as yet, because on the news they were saying that COVID was in Westchester. So we didn't have any cases in Brooklyn at the time. I work in a hospital in Brooklyn. So that patient came in for a fall. The diagnosis of that patient was fall, admitting diagnosis. And we took care of that patient for 2 days after admission. And it was when the patient took a turn for the worse. The patient started having respiratory distress. Doctors couldn't figure out what was going on, so they decided to take a COVID test. When they took the test, it came out positive. At that time, we were already exposed, but I had the most exposure because I had the most contact with that patient. That patient, we intubated the patient to try to save her life, but it was too late. She died. But unfortunately, there were other patients in the room, so they were affected also. And I was the nurse for those patients, so I had to take care of those patients. I spoke to management and I let them know that I was exposed. They knew I was exposed and they knew it's a high possibility that I would get COVID, but they didn't care.
Oh, wow.
This is the mask that we were supposed to be using for COVID patients. They came on the unit and they took all of the masks. They left one box. One box. On a regular day before COVID, we would have like 20 boxes of those because I'm on the vented unit. So we usually get respiratory cases. So we usually have a whole lot of those, but during COVID, they took all the masks off the unit, stating that workers might steal it, so we had no supplies. Taking care of all those patients, I had only one of those. And this is supposed to be one use, not several times. The patients I had couldn't do anything for themselves. I had one of them was an 80-something-year-old lady. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't do anything. So I was constantly in the room with her, making sure she doesn't fall. I had to feed her. At that time, nobody wanted to go in the room. I was doing dietary work. I was doing building service work. I was doing CNA work. I was doing nurse work. I even had to take the broom and the dustpan, sweep up the room and clean up the room. It was so filthy because nobody wanted to go in. During that time, the exposure was really high for me. So after like 4 days, I started coming down with symptoms. I was told that unless I don't have a fever, I cannot call out. I have to come to work.
So
it came to the point where I went home, was off the next day, and realized that I knew I had COVID because I had a headache that nothing could help. Nothing would help. Sleep. I took Tylenol number 3. I took everything. Nothing would help with this headache. And then the symptoms started coming more. I started having cough. I started having sore throat. Until I finally decided to go get tested. Going to get tested was another issue because nobody wanted to test me because they was afraid. Once they hear COVID, it's like, stand back. I remember that day when I went to get tested. I went to an urgent care in my area, and they said to me, sign your name and go back in your vehicle and wait until we call you. In the meantime, everybody was coming in and out. People came after me. They went, they got taken care of. They were sent home. I stayed in my vehicle until 5 o'clock, and I arrived there at 10:15 a.m. that morning. I was the last person they attended to, and they took me in from the side door. It was such horrible treatment. I didn't even tell them that I was a healthcare worker because I didn't want any special treatment, but at least treat me like a human being, you know? And that was, the treatment alone by itself was really bad. Came back home and it got worse. I started having more, as the days go by, I started having more and more symptoms to the point where I realized that I was having pneumonia because I was having difficulty breathing. When I coughed, I would have chest pain, and the area it was, I knew I was having pneumonia. So I needed to get up at that time to go to the hospital to get treatment because that's the only way I would have a chance of surviving. So I took myself off. I mean, it was difficult because I was weak. I had already lost my sense of smell, my sense of taste, terrible headache, and I took my shortness of breath. I called the EMS. And at the time, my mom was like, she said, don't even bother calling them because nobody would respond. But I called, and when I called, the 911 operator said to me, she said, how did you get COVID? And then when I explained to her that I was a registered nurse, the EMS was at my door in less than 10 minutes. So when they came, I mean, the 2 guys were really nice to me. I mean, I got, I'm going to say VIP treatment from my house to the hospital. But once I got there, the treatment was over. I was placed on a stretcher. The main thing I went in for was oxygen, and they didn't give me any oxygen. I stayed on the stretcher for almost 3 hours, begging, pleading, please, can I have some oxygen? And no, I mean, it was, the stretchers was like, we would say bumper to bumper. They was like this close to each other. We didn't have any place to pass. That was the amount of people that were in the hospital, and everybody was there for COVID. So, I mean, I know they didn't have the attention to give me, but as a nurse, you know, as a healthcare worker, you know that when someone can't breathe, that's a priority. And at that time, it looked like they didn't care. I started gasping, and then I managed to scream. And that's when someone came to me and said, what's the matter? It was one of the doctors. And I said, I've been asking for oxygen for almost 2 hours and nobody's listening to me. And she said to me, well, you have to wait. Not knowing that I'm a healthcare professional too. And I said to her, do you know your ABCs? Which is airway, breathing, and circulation. That's priority. And she looked at me and she didn't say another word, and she grabbed the oxygen, she put it on me. I waited 2 days in the emergency room because it was so packed that there was no bed for me. So somebody either had to die or somebody had to be discharged for me to get a bed to go upstairs. I finally got a bed to go upstairs. That was day 3. By then, I was incontinent. Bowel, bladder, cough, fever at the time was as high as 104. They would get it down for like 15 minutes. And then after 15 minutes, it would go right back up. My blood pressure was dropping. My heart rate was increasing. My vital signs was critical. They finally got me on the unit. I was placed at the last room on the unit where nobody could hear me, nobody could see me. I would call for hours, nobody would come. The nurses and the doctors, they were kind when they did come in, but very rare you would see them. They would only come in if they had to do vitals on me, or if they had to give me medication. That's the only time I would see them. I would call for hours and no one would come.
So let me just ask you, Wendy Ann. So yes. You are detailing, you're giving a gripping story, and sometimes I wince. It's like, wow. Because I'm thinking, number one, as a healthcare practititioner, you should not have to endure that kind of treatment. But I want to step back a little bit and go to you having contracted it and the time you were made to sit in your car for 5 hours. But let me just ask you to just hold that thought there. Let me just go back to Richard to see if I can string a common line here. Richard, you waited, you said, close to a month. And the reason I'm asking is in Grenada, we're hearing people say that, they've been waiting on the the hotline for answers, and they're reaching out and not getting assistance. So, Chris, you said that you took a very long time before you actually got your diagnosis. Well, before we come to you, I see now that we have finally Richard Boker with us. Richard works with the NTA. He's a Grenadian. Richard, we thank you so much for making the effort. We know you had a rough day today and you rushed home. So thanks so much for joining us to share your story. So let me ask Chris and Wendy Ann to be a little patient so that we could introduce you and get you started. So thank you so much for making the effort tonight, Richard.
Good night. Where should start? We should say thank God for being here today. My point of view, but it's not something I think we should take lightly right now, because I think the country see what's going on. The amount of deaths, people crying, pain, it's not something lightly. And I've been through something that I think maybe few might go through what I've been through. And that joint I was listening to, I think he's a doctor or something, right?
Actually,
listen to the young lady.
She's a registered nurse. She's the nurse practitioner in New York.
Okay. It's a painful something. It's very painful. And I'm going to say again, alive to be here today, start back to work today fully. And, when I just say, when people get clear from COVID, like they say, like after the 14 days, I don't think you should be actually outside to say like you're going back to like the normal social life as yet. Because your body is normally be weak. So I think you need, to boost your system up before you enter back to the social life outside it. And, even though like you're clear from COVID, don't forget to, use your zinc and whatever vitamins. Because I think you can catch it again. So my experience was not a nice experience, and it was a painful experience. The headache was not something nice. The bad belly, the fever. It's not something, it's not a nice experience. And I ain't think I want anybody experience. I ain't say one of my enemies. I wish that for even from my enemies. I should tell you that. I should tell you how dread this COVID is. And we Grenadians, we still out back to work today. And I even still seen some people like this, the wearing the mask all down here. And you go pass by a block, or you will see a guy in a group of fellas by a shop or whatever, and like they be speaking face to face to each other without a mask. And I think, I mean, if you even look on the Facebook, I just say that it's what as you can see every day. You see an RIP to a teacher that you knew taught you in school, to a friend, close friend that you know, somebody, you know. It's painful. So it's a emotional something that when you come out from COVID again, and then the public outside, they want to know, like, you're clear from COVID. They're watching you like a kind of scornful with some people, like, you know, you had COVID. You know, they have to be kind of careful with you. I mean, if somebody come from COVID, from this painful something, I mean, you're supposed to, you know, cheer up with them and ask them what it is like and what you use. So in case if you end up in it, you know what to do or something. You know, I mean, people need to stop this negativity thing towards COVID, because this thing is a painful something, emotional and a physical something. Because when you come out of that emotional pain of this headache and this physical pain of this headache, it's like you're getting crazy. And I think a lot of people know I'm speaking about the other side of this headache, making you feel like you're getting mad. So I don't know what to do again or what to say to tell people about this COVID thing, but we need to be more serious about the thing we are here, and let's do the thing and get over it, because it's every day when you wear guards and you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, there's more people that will be getting sick in here, and the hospital, they balling. I want to put it like that. They're crying.
So, Richard, tell us a little bit, give us a little bit of your background. You work for, and where do you live right now? All right. Richard, right. We seem to have a little back. So, where do you live and who do you work for? What kind of work do you do?
I'm self-employed. Right. I have my own maxi taxi, my own bus, minibus. Mm-hmm. I run out the number one at the graphics.
Right.
I'm from Buka.
Right. So you and there's been the discussion about the need to protect lives over livelihoods. When did you first realize that you had COVID, and did you get were you treated at a hospital, or were you treated at home? Did you?
I was at home.
Okay.
I was treated at home.
Right.
Well, the Sunday I realized like I was feeling kind of funny, and I realized like this is not me. I started feeling like the fever started coming down with a light headache. So the Monday morning I came out. I make the first trip as normal, but not actually full, like, you know. The first trip was because everybody was start distancing, say business to place was closing down. So I went and get checked at the health center. But yeah, so many people there outside standing more than like I went back home, I called the doctor, my personal doctor. And then she came and tested me, and I was positive. So I decided to isolate myself and live for myself downstairs. And I isolated myself for the 14 days, and then I was tested, and then I was negative, and then I stood on at least a week before I came back out.
Okay. Right. So we'll go through some of your experiences in terms of your symptoms, but I want to cross back to Jamaica where we have Chris McCurdy. So Chris, your symptoms spanned which spectrum? You went from this to what?
Well, the funny thing is, some of the most common symptoms for COVID, I didn't have any of those. I didn't have any fever. I didn't have any. Well, I had fever. I'm sorry. I didn't have the runny nose that everybody spoke about. I didn't have the other bowels and diarrhea and headache and all that stuff. All I had was a heavy fever, high fever. And of course, that high fever comes with the chills. So those were the main two I have. My fever run all the way up to about 104, thereabout. Like the nurse says earlier, it went up to 104, went back down a little bit, and then it went back up. So I kept going in and out. Every evening, as it becomes late in the evening, you start to go down with a fever. and that comes with chills. I carried that symptom for about 6 or 7 days. And when the fever hit 104, that's when I thought that this was getting very serious. So that's when I decided that I might have to now go to the doctor. So I went to a private hospital at the time because the public hospitals were full, full to capacity. So I chose to go to a private institution where I'd get some level of priority treatment. I went and I spent the entire day there. But funny enough, what a lot of persons fail to realize is that those private institutions still wind up sending you off to the public hospital because they're more equipped to deal with COVID patients. But the funny thing is, when I went to the hospital, I was already feeling a lot better. And I got oxygen there. I didn't need a lot. I think I spent a few hours on oxygen, probably 3 or 4 hours on oxygen, and then that's it. So from 8:30 that morning up until about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the night, I would have gotten all the necessary medication I needed, and I would have now felt a lot better. And even with that rapid test that was done, it came back negative. But the doctor was still of the view that what he saw in my system is an indication that I had COVID. And for that reason, I have to be hospitalized to make sure. They could not admit me, so they sent me off to public hospital. I eventually did not stay because I convinced everybody I was good. I felt real good, and I came back home, still continued to take my vitamins and stuff for another couple of days, and then I was out of it. But it lasted the entire ordeal was for, I would want to say, about 3 weeks, 2 weeks going into 3 weeks, and I was good. I was good after that, but it was rough. And I, as a gentleman said earlier, this is not something that I would wish on not even my greatest of enemy, if I have any, because it's rough. It's a rough feeling, and not just the feeling at the time when I had COVID. I think what really resonates with me now is when you look back at the amount of persons who had COVID and they're not here today to talk about it. That's the part that really hits me hard, because I know a lot of persons who had COVID and they're not here to talk about it till they passed. So I still know that we three who have survived, have a lot to give thanks for.
Good. And I think, Wendy, and remind me, Richard, you said, because I've spoken with someone who spoke about their mental health apparently being challenged during the period of suffering this, and you mentioned that. I want to come back to you on that just now, Richard. But Wendy, and we've heard Chris say that, a lot of people have not lived to tell the story. And I understand you sort of felt on some occasions you were on deathbed and you started to bargain with God. You want to tell us about that?
Yes, I did. So as the days go by, when I started getting the antibiotics and the treatment, I thought I was going to get better, but I didn't. So as the days go by, I was feeling like every day I felt worse. So at one point I said to myself, I am not going to get out of this. I was thinking this would be the last moment of my life. So I'm laying on the bed and I'm saying to God, I said, please, God, I said, I have my son. I'm a single parent, even though he has his grandma, but, I'm a single parent. I said, please, I'll do anything. I was the biggest lover of carnival and Juve and parties and everything. This is what I said to him. I said, please, no more carnival, no more Juve, no more all of that stuff. Please just let me live. And at the moment, my uncle, who is a pastor, at the moment he called, and I just got the strength to pick up the phone and say hello. And I said to him, I said, please, can you pray for me? I think this is it. And he started praying and he said to me, this is the sinner's prayer. I want you to repeat after me. I don't know where I got the strength from, because I had no strength, but I managed to say it. And I said it. I didn't feel better at the time. The doctor came in and I said to him, Doc, am I going to live? Will I survive? And he looked at me with tears in his eyes. He had tears in his eyes and he did not respond and he just left the room. And at that moment, I said to myself, if he didn't answer, I know what that means. The next day he came back and he said to me, there isn't anything we can do for you. We gave you the medication. We tried everything. We will have to discharge you and you would have to go home and fight for yourself. I pleaded and I begged with him. I said, please stop. I can't. I said, I can't even walk. At this time, I was pooping on myself. I was peeing on myself. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. And he said to me, we need the bed. That's how he said it. He said, we need the bed. We have to send you home. I had no other choice but to go home. They sent me home without any oxygen. I couldn't even come up my staircase. My mom and my son had to come and lift me up. And it's a 3-family house and I'm on the top. They had to come downstairs and lift me up to get upstairs. And once I got upstairs, I couldn't even go to the bathroom to take a shower. And I refused to go lie down in my bed coming from the hospital with all these germs to go. I managed to make it to the bathroom, took a shower, went to my bed, and I couldn't get dressed. So I laid in my bed, I'm going to say naked for the rest of the night because I didn't have the strength and I couldn't sit up to get dressed. Put on nightgown or pajamas or anything to go to bed. So I just lay in there with no clothes.
So we get to the issue of, were you vaccinated at the time when you caught COVID?
No, I was not because that was March of last year. They didn't have a vaccine yet.
There was no
COVID
vaccine at the
coming
time.
in.
And so I want to come back and touch on the whole issue of last week I spoke with a COVID survivor on the news and he said you feel as if you're sent into exile. So remind me of that thought, Wendy. I want to ask you about your feeling as though you were in exile. But let me go back to Richard. Richard, a friend of mine said to me that she felt as though she was losing her mind, and you spoke about probably feeling as if you were going crazy. Tell us about that, Richard, that part of it.
Just thinking about it, like, to speak about it. Like, the headache is, I don't know, it feels like a lot of brain. So maybe that is what created like that. I don't know how to call that headache. I don't have a name for it. I don't want to put a name to it, but it's like a monster. It's like your eye behind you. It's like your whole head. Like you want to bust open. It's like you're watching it TV. Like you don't want no light. Like you see your phone ringing. Like you know, like someone calling to make sure that you're okay. You just want to touch that phone. You just want to peace and quiet. And it's like, to be honest, my headache was like 8 days of headache, and I just suffered from migraine. So you should know like how devastated that headache is. And it's like going through that headache, it making you feel like you could just. The other point in time, I put my head in the freezer to try to calm it down. It's still not okay. You're taking all kind of painkillers. The other point in time, I'm not saying she gave up. I gave up upon the time. But when I spoke to my wife, I told her, that's it. I can't go anymore. It's like I reached that limit. It's like, my head is not mine. You can just bust open now. It's like you feel like, the other point in time, I feel like I just jump through the window. Your head feeling like it will make you get crazy. That headache. And people out there who know who got the headache, they will know I'm coming. That pain. If you don't know it's pain, this is pain.
So, Richard,
like
one of my friends also said to me that when between the headache and the fever, there was a sensation, and the person actually put their head inside of a refrigerator. You had that kind of urge? They said something to cool the fever, something to... You feel as if you're going off. Did you have that sensation as well?
I put my head in the freezer. I don't say I put my head in the freezer. Like, you want to calm it down. It's like, nothing you could do. Is like your head just bust, like punging. Your eye, like your nose feeling wrong, you feel heavy. It's like, I can't really explain it. It's just too much pain. Your head is not yours. It's like all the way a ton is pain. Like a vein behind it, like a press open. The headache was more painful thing for me junior COVID. I had like the chills, the fever, the bad belly, the aches, but the headache was devastating.
So your bowel movements, were you able to control your bowel movements, or it was just all over the place, as Wendy said?
No. Well, you see, Miss Wendian is overseas, so she will not be able to take some of the herbs that we would be drinking daily to control certain things. And the next thing about it, Miss Wendian, just hearing her speak, you touch me. There's a tears in my eyes, but I know that the pain that I go through, and to say what you went through, that you went to the hospital, I think hospital will be the last resort for me. Because what's going on right now in Grenada, I ain't afraid to say it, is not nice. I don't advise nobody to go to the hospital because it's like nobody there to see after you. No one there to really look after you. Like the nurse and them is overwhelmed. They're falling sick as they're falling victim of the same thing, the same COVID. So it's like, who there to see after you? But when you're home with your family, they might still have a chance. Somebody will pass and look, you go or call them, they will still drop something. And in Grenada, we have a love because majority everybody in Grenada live with a family. So my mom and them upstairs, I'm downstairs by myself. So they was bringing the herbs, taking care of me, great up what I had great up. I was doing my regular steam. But I was also weak. I'm just small already. Look at me, I'm still small, trying to get back my like 2 pounds. But you're actually like, you're weak. Especially when you're coming out from the toilet, it's like your knees, everything weak. The only thing you want to do is just to lie down. Weak.
Okay. So, Wendy, let me come back to you. Chris, I'll come to you in a little bit. I want to deal with the whole feeling of being in exile. But I saw you nodding when Richard was saying something. So you want to pick up on any one of those and then go on to that point, or?
Yes, he spoke about a headache. I mean, I had more than headache. I was actually hallucinating. I couldn't sleep at night. It was just dead people all over my bed. I would fall asleep like 15 minutes, and with the fright, I would wake up and I would stay up to this day. I don't sleep all night. I would sleep 2 hours, then I would toss and turn. It's been over a year and I still don't get a good night's rest because it still bothers you. It's still, for some reason, I was just seeing dead people all over. On my bed, it was like everybody I knew that died, they were sitting on my bed talking to me all night. That's the way I felt. Times you would feel like just going through the hospital window and just jumping out the window. That's how bad it was. It's just a horrible feeling. That's why I don't want people to go through what I went through. That is why I'm going through all these channels, just to say to everyone, please, this is serious. Take it serious. It's not NLP or NDC, it's everybody has to come together and see how we can fix this. That's the only way we will get rid of COVID, just to come together for once, I mean, I know people don't want to take the vaccine, but at least do something. Wear your mask, social distance, be careful, take it serious. That's the only way we're going to fight this.
Chris, Wendy, thanks for that. Chris, tell us about your, how emotionally, how did you cope with this? This was something you're feeling so sick. How did you cope with this emotionally?
I think one of the best things to have when you're in that kind of situation is to have a good support system. I think what helped me a lot is the fact that I had a lot of family members around me. I had a lot of people around me who, frankly, didn't care. When I say didn't care, they didn't care whether or not they catch it from me. They felt the need to administer whatever care there was, and that's what they did. So I think the hospital and isolation is what really helped to bring you down faster. Being in a situation where there is support, people you can talk to. One of the things when you have COVID is that you want to speak to somebody, you want to talk to somebody because you feel lonely. And I think that's what contributes to a lot of the death, because people just don't have access to the care they need in the hospital, and they don't have access to family members. I was very fortunate. I had family members around me. I was able to get just about anything I could get in the hospital. I could get it by my bedside. I didn't have oxygen at the time, but the truth be told, if I needed that, I could have gotten it there too. So I was very fortunate. And that is one thing I have to give thanks for is the ability to have people around you. And if you look at most persons who passed away, just my view, if they had people around them to talk to, because when that emotional distress come upon you, the only thing that can really bring you out of it is to have people to communicate with. I felt sometimes out of it. There were times when I felt like this was the end of it. I remember vividly, there was a moment when I didn't want anybody to leave the room. You know, I didn't want anybody to go. Just stay. Let's talk, because that's what I needed. That was part of my medication, part of the therapy I needed at that time. And I think those things help. You know, a lot of persons who have lost is because the system in the hospitals is more. It adds to the injury of COVID. We don't have a vaccine at the time when I caught COVID, so. The best thing was to deal with it in the context of self-medication, taking the Panadol to ease the pain, taking the fever reducers, you know. When I got through, I had a thing for my lungs, because one of the things I discovered when I went to the hospital and they did an x-ray, I realized that both sides of my lungs were damaged. And that was one of the reasons why the doctors knew that I had COVID. Because I had no prior underlying conditions. And when the tests finally came back and suggested that at the time when I took it, I had COVID, that was confirmation from all angles. But like I said, the emotional side of it, what you really need is people around you. And you'd be surprised to know the difference it makes when you feel reassured, when you feel like you're not alone, you feel like you're not dying, because there are people around you and they got you. That's all the feeling. And that took me through, you know.
Yeah, feeling that they got you. Wendy, there's a question for you here, but I want to ask Richard. Richard, were you taking Panadol to try and alleviate, because you're saying that your headaches were so terrible? Were you on any kind of meds, taking Panadol, for instance, Richard?
I was taking Panadol, the liquid at home. And he had a time I take the 800. I was on this stream for like a while just to try to ease up. But it's like nothing to walking, to be honest. That headache is like you go for his own. You go on your own. Nothing to walk.
Okay. So we have a question here. These testimonies and experiences are very scary. And for Wendy, what type of medication was administered to you at the hospital, if any? So Wendy, somebody's asking, what kind of medication was administered?
So I had pneumonia, so they treated me with antibiotics for pneumonia. And then they give me that medication Donald Trump called Placanil. They gave me that, which did not help. It gave me chest pain instead of helping me, so that didn't help. But they also gave me azithromycin, which is another antibiotic. But when I came from the hospital, I still didn't have any relief. So I had a doctor friend from my hospital where I worked. He was able to send me some other antibiotics and some steroids because I couldn't breathe. So he was able to send me some steroids and some antibiotic, and my son picked it up. That's when I started feeling a little better and I was able to sit up. But the medication they gave me in the hospital, it didn't, I would say, it wasn't effective fully.
Do you feel that the health system failed you as a person, but more importantly, as a healthcare practitioner?
I wouldn't say that, because being a healthcare worker, and I know the nurses and the doctors with the volume of patients, I know they were overwhelmed. So I'm not going to blame them. And at the time, everybody was scared. So, and looking at them, they didn't have the right PPEs to take care of COVID patients. So, I mean, even though I know I was neglected, it didn't bother me that much because I was also concerned about their well-being. And I didn't want to be the one to give someone COVID and they die because of me. So even though I call and they didn't come, I wouldn't be upset. I wasn't upset for the simple fact that I'm looking at them. I know what they're going through. So I didn't feel neglected and it didn't bother me. That's one of the reasons why I went out back to work before I was supposed to, because I wanted to show the patients that, at least some people do care. At one point, I was using my personal phone to FaceTime family members so they can see their loved ones, because we had no visitors at that time. So no one could come to visit. The only way they would see their loved ones is I would try to grab 5 minutes out of my time and FaceTime family members and have them so they can actually see what's going on. Even, some of them couldn't speak, but at least they can see them and know that they are there. So, like I said, I didn't blame them, even though as a nurse, I would put myself out, and I did. That's the reason why I was exposed, and that's the reason why I was one of the sickest nurses on the unit. Because like I said, while everybody was running away from the COVID patients in the COVID room, I was the one going into the room to make sure those patients were cared for.
Do you regret that, though? Do you regret putting yourself out there?
No, I don't. If I have to do it again, I'll do it again. And like I said, I took the vaccine and I don't regret taking it. And if I have to take 10 more shots, I'll do it again.
How old is your son and how did he respond to all of this?
My son he just turned 20. Actually gave him COVID, but it was mild for him. He was, 19 at the time. He wasn't showing his emotions, but I learned that when I went to the hospital, his blood pressure was extremely high. They had to rush him to the emergency room. He was so scared. I mean, he's not the person that would, say his feelings to anybody, but I know he was scared because to the point that where he was rushed to the emergency room and the EMS thought he was going to stroke out. That's how bad it was. And so he was just keeping it in.
And your mom? How did your mom cope with this? Because you said your mother and your son is who had to take you up those stairs.
And she was very sick as well with COVID, but she was the one taking care of. Even though I gave it to her and she was very sick, I had nobody else to care for me. I couldn't do anything for myself. So even though she was sick, she was the one that was taking care of me. The thing is, she didn't have the pneumonia, so she didn't have it as bad as I had it. So she was able to, a few days, take care of me. Some days we would both lay in bed and we would just nobody to take care of us. But towards the end, she was able to get up and make me some broth or give me some hot tea or something. And then I didn't have sense of smell or taste, so I couldn't even eat or drink anything. It took me, almost 10 days before I actually had something to eat or drink.
All right. Let me just say, Wendy, that I just think I'm lost for words a little bit, and I think I need to breathe. Let me ask our indulgence, or collective indulgence, so we can take a commercial break, we can breathe, and we can come back. This is Beyond the Headlines.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need, and we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LED. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
How do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
Renelec, energizing our Grenada.
You're already ill and have no time or energy to walk every which way to access your healthcare needs. So come to Spice Isle Imaging on the Carenage for a one-spot stop for all your health service needs. See our in-house doctor and get your meds from the pharmacy right on location. Digital X-ray, MRI, CT scans, mammography, ultrasound and laboratory services are also available. So for that moment when life makes demands on you, you can make demands on us. Visit us at Spice Isle Imaging, Carenage, St. George's.
When a loved one passes on, we all need the comfort, support, and guidance of a trusted friend. You can rely on LaCour Brothers Funeral Home. We provide a personalized professional service that exceeds all expectations. Our dedicated staff responds to your every need with the greatest detail, ensuring affordability with a variety of options. Our upgraded state-of-the-art facilities, spacious air-conditioned chapel with live internet streaming, a modern, environmentally safe crematorium, the only of its kind on island, private viewing spaces, large on-site repast center, a modern transportation fleet. Join our burial society today and make personalized arrangements for that final moment as you prepare to enter your loved one into eternal rest. Visit or call LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and select a package that brings added comfort to the entire family. LaCour Brothers Funeral Home and Burial Society, continuing a tradition of excellence.
Just a reminder, the global pandemic is not over. Office Pros and markers are still here to protect you. Available are several versions of touchless hand sanitizer and hand soap dispensers, dispenser stands, paper towel and toilet paper dispensers, and thermometers. Also available, hand sanitizing gel, sanitizing solution, hand soap, Lysol products, face masks, and gloves, all offered at the best price on the market and backed by a full warranty and protection plan with free installation. We are located on the Woodlands Main Road. Call Office Pros on 444-2393 or markers on 439-2393. You can also visit the Facebook page for more information. And never forget to remember, I, Mr. Markers, would never forsake you. Believe that.
Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. We've gone into survival mode. And this evening we're speaking with Wendy Ann McGuire. She's a Grenadian family nurse practitioner based in New York. We have Mr. Christopher McCurdy. He's a producer. He's also a COVID survivor. He's based in Jamaica. And we have right here in Grenada, Mr. Richard Boker. He's also a COVID survivor, and he operates within the transportation realm. Some very interesting stories. So, Wendy, and somebody wants to know how you survived for 10 days without food or drink. Were you being treated intravenously?
Yes, at the hospital, they gave me IV fluids. Once I got here, once I got home, I don't know how I survived. I really don't know how I survived without eating or drinking. As a matter of fact, the doctor got really upset at me in the hospital because I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink anything, and I was getting weaker. And he was like, if you want to improve, you have to eat and drink. But the simple fact, one, I don't eat hospital food. Two, I had no taste of smell. I had no taste. I couldn't smell anything. I couldn't taste anything. And the food didn't look appetizing to me. So I don't know. To be honest, I think it's the IV fluid from the hospital. That's why I survived. I came here At home, I would try maybe a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons for the most, and that was it. To be honest, like I said, I think it's God. That's the only reason why I think I'm here, because to be honest, I didn't think I was going to come back.
And you said you did make a bargain with God. I
did. And that's when I left the hospital. So I think that's all of that was in the bargain.
Great. And I also want you to tell us about the temptation that you had. But one of the things we did promise our viewers and listeners is that we have 2 other stories to share. There's a Grenadian survivor, Augustine Pear. He went to New York and he contracted COVID-19. And we also have a St. Lucian, Miguel Clifford, who has a story to tell. So let me ask us to be patient while we cross to Augustine Pear for his story, and we'll come back and talk to Chris and Richard in a moment. But before I cross to Augustine, Richard, let's ask Chris first. Chris, what was your experience as far as food was concerned? Were you able to consume as per normal? How was that for you, Chris?
No, I had a very mild appetite. I didn't eat a lot. I had access to a lot of food. Like I said, there were persons here who would have, keep me hydrated. I had a lot of juice. I had a bunch of juice and stuff, but I didn't eat a whole lot. The appetite was not there. So you'd munch around every now and then, I had a bit of fruit. I in my consciousness, I knew I had to eat. I knew I needed something in my stomach. So I'd try desperately to keep something down. I wasn't hungry, I just wasn't hungry. I think the biggest problem I had was fatigue. You felt this sense of fatigue where you're restless and you're uncomfortable. Especially when that fever comes on, you sometimes during the daytime, you'll feel good for a couple of hours. You feel like this is it. I'm feeling good. But then by 3 o'clock, once the sun is going down, then you're getting sick again. And that's when the fatigue comes in at nights. You just couldn't sleep. But the appetite was never there. I can tell you when I got over it, though. My first meal was one of those big steam fish. And that's what I fell for. I felt like having some fish, and I had a lot of soup and stuff. And I lost about probably a good 10, 15 pounds during the whole period,
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard, you were saying earlier that you were pointing to the features and to the physique and saying you're trying to get your strength back up. What was your relationship with food during that ordeal, Richard?
Well, as Chris said, the taste, I didn't have no taste, no smell, no taste. So it's like you're trying to eat is like you can't eat. You have no taste, no smell. So the only thing that kept me going for like a couple of days was like the hot tea, like drinking the herbs and them kind of things. Green Grenada here, we have a lot of different spices. So I was like drinking that constantly, and maybe that had me because I'm a like a guy already, like I'm a small man. And right now it's like bones. it's not something. Yeah. Because it's like in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks and some, the liquor weight that you have will leave your body, eliminate your body so fast that you can't believe that you lose that weight so fast. Because like daily go by, you cannot eat. No matter what you try to eat, you cannot eat because you can't smell and you can't taste. You don't have the sense. So it's like, no matter how you try to eat or whatever, it's just not going down.
Yes. So as promised, let's get to Augustine Pear's story. He's a Grenadian. He went to New York to visit his mom, as we'll hear in this excerpt here.
Well, I was employed in Grenada, so I went in the States for 8 weeks to see my mother, who wasn't well, and ended up to be 7 months lying down on my back in the States, cannot do nothing. Yeah, like the COVID take me up there. He caused me to go in the hospital. I spent about 2 weeks there unconscious. I don't know when I'm going to the hospital. I was unconscious. And I spent 7 months because he had like a problem to come back, with this flight and so on. I spent 7 months just lying down, cannot do nothing in America. And it was very frustrating for me. It is something dangerous. Right about now, I cannot walk again. It damaged all my hands and my feet. And I'm just struggling with it. Trying to do a little exercise now and again, to keep my body fit, but I cannot walk again. I recovered in the hospital because I didn't know when I go in the hospital. Because like the COVID, it bring up my sugar. It bring up my sugar up to 400 and something. So like I did die. And with the experience, girlfriend, I'm a child of God. While in the hospital day, I felt, like when the Lord, you die, and the Lord just come and He lift you up, and He tell me, He give me a second chance. So I'm living here on a second chance because I know they die. Because they all believe that they die. Because I didn't know nothing, I don't know when I reach in the hospital. Because when they take me from the upstairs, it's a small step like that, narrow like that. Ambulance come and take me after that, I don't know. I was urinating on myself. I was passing feces and things on myself. It was very embarrassing, But I did went through a lot. And my prayer is that people should do what they have to do because this thing is very dangerous. I had a lot of discomfort because one time I could not have passed stool. And it was very painful. Very, very painful. I used to be bawling in the hospital until I don't know what they give me. I don't know because I don't know the medical name. They give me something that when I start to pass, I'm passing too much. Every minute, them nurse have to come and clean me up, which was very embarrassing for me. So I did went through a piece. As a man, I'm a skillful electrician. I love to work, and I cannot work. Oh no, I cannot work.
Wendy and Chris, anybody wants to come in here? This is somebody who I know. He spoke with A Dose of Facts. It was a program produced by the OECS. We have someone who co-hosts on Beyond the Headlines with me, Garfield Bufford. So he produced that program. It was aired yesterday. So we've taken some excerpts from it by permission. Wendy and you, so we like to connect dots and lines. So you say up to today you can't sleep. He said he felt he died. You say all these dead people were coming and lay on your bed or sit on your bed. Yes. Hallucinations. So take us through some of how do you relate to some of what he related?
I can relate because some of them I experienced. Some of them I experienced even more than him. I can relate exactly what he's going through because I went through that same process. And like I said, I thought that was my last time on earth. And I thought I was never going to be going back home. And I'm here today, and I think it's because of the promise I made to God. I honestly think that's why I'm here. And I think if I didn't make that promise, I wouldn't have been here today. I lost so many co-workers, friends. And I'm just so grateful to be alive.
And you told God, one of the things you told God was that, there'd be no carnival, and there was what might have been Labor Day. The temptations came, I'm certain. How did you?
I know my good friend, all summer been telling me, let's go to mass camp. And I said to her, I can't. A promise is a promise. Even though I had the urge and I wanted to go, I didn't. Because I have to fulfill my promise.
So to the Jabs in Grenada who say mass must play, what is your word to them?
You know what it is? One of them made a comment to me on Facebook when I said to them, I said, you guys shouldn't worry about the jab for now. Worry about COVID. And she said to me, oh, a jab probably wind up on your man. That's why you hate jabs. So, but she don't know what I've been through, and I think she should take that statement back, because when you've been through certain things, you don't know what people go through, and it's not nice to say stuff like that. All I'm trying to do is help the people in Grenada, because for what I'm seeing, a whole lot don't think it's serious. And, it's time they come to realize what is going on. And the only way we can fix this is give up the job a little. I'm not saying, to give it up for the rest of your life. I choose to give it up for the rest of my life. That's me. But I mean, for now, we should concentrate on COVID and how we're going to get past COVID and the things we need to do to get past it. That's what we have to do. That's what we have to do. COVID, Juve is not going to save you. Carnival is not going to save you. Like I said, I would play mass every year in Grenada. I would come every year for Carnival in Grenada. I would play mass in Grenada. Then I would come up 2 weeks after and I'll play Labor Day every year. Every year. That was my routine. No more for me, because now I see that COVID is a killer. This is serious. And, we have to start taking it seriously. So for the person that said, my man whining a job, no, that's not what it is, hon. It's just, I'm looking out for my people. I want them to be safe, and I don't want them to go through what I went through, because it's not a nice experience.
So people say jab, they say mass, they say culture. We have a survivor in St. Lucia who has that same cultural tone and has had to change his approach to this as well. His name is Miguel Clifford, and he also spoke to A Dose of Facts, produced by our co-host intermittently, Garfield Bufford. So let's go to Clifford in St. Lucia for Clifford's story.
Experience that I had, because it wasn't a nice experience. To me, I was close to death. That's how I saw it. When COVID just came out, to be honest, I thought it was who's that? People just say COVID, blah, blah, blah. Then after I got it, it's no joke. It's not a joke thing. That's a serious thing. COVID is real. People would say it's towers and all of that. I don't think any tower will make you so sick. And people need to realize that it is true. It is real. A lot of people have died out of it, and a lot of people get sick out of it. And people would say, oh, the elderly will get it. No. Young people, I know young people like younger than me who died. A good friend of mine's son, which I know very well, son died in Vieux-Fort. I just told me yesterday that a bus driver that I know very well died. I know a farmer of mine who used to sell me coconuts died on Sunday. So it is real, and I say, but listen, boy, I got a chance that these people didn't get, to tell people COVID is real and they have to be careful. Wear your mask, sanitize. I'm a couple of groups, and I've told my partners in the sound group, me say, let's keep the music down for now. I love music. Music is everything for me. But now I cannot go out and sit down by the road or sit down by the beach with my friends, play music and sit down and have a drink because of COVID, because you never know who would come around and they have COVID and will just come and talk to you, and then boom, you get it again. But I'm being very precautious. I always have my mask, I have my sanitizer, and I don't go in large crowds. I stay away from it, period.
So there we have the cultural thing, and we had that story from Miguel Clifford. He's a St. Lucian survivor, and he spoke to A Dose of Facts, which was produced by our very good friend Garfield Bufford. He sometimes acts as co-host on Beyond the Headlines. And we also want to say thanks to Cameron Brown in St. Lucia, who produced the video and submitted to A Dose of Facts, commissioned by the OECS Commission. And Cameron was also an employee of the Grenada Broadcasting Network for several years. Richard, I want to come to you and then go to Chris. Richard, the cultural thing now, mass must play or mass must stop play? See the big smile. Richard, you're muted. For some reason, you muted your mic. hit that button on the phone that you're...
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry
Go
about
ahead.
that.
I see the big smile. Go ahead.
The reason why I smile, as no say, she was a fan of the mass. I am a fan of the job. I did pay my job this year. Regardless of what, I did pay my job, but I did pay my job for myself. But you know what, I did went and watch activities went on in the village. But I mean, you won't catch me playing the job again like that, like before. I mean, who know me. I like my mass, but you have a point in time in life that you have to give up certain things. And this is my second call. Close, reach close to death and return from death. I'm telling you, I've been stabbed before with the same kind of carnival like an activity in Carriacou about 5 years back, wrong taken, and then look, I went and played the mass. But you're not saying because I played the mass, I got the COVID. But there are certain things that you have to give up when you reach a certain age, as you say, or something you just have to leave it to where it is and leave it for the younger kids. But my mass, my days for mass, that was the last mass, I think. I don't think I'll be playing mass anymore. But no,
tell us what you're doing up. Yeah, and Richard, tell us what you're doing about vaccination. All right. So, yes, Richard, you seem to have been frozen. Tell us what you're doing about vaccination now that you've had this experience. Richard?
I'm not, you're breaking up again.
Okay, so let me cross
I think the season I'm on time.
You could vaccination.
So
what do you plan to do about vaccination? If I could do sign language, vaccination. Richard?
Yes, are you hearing me now?
Richard, you look as if you're pretending you're hearing me. What you plan to do about vaccination?
No, you break it up. Are you hearing me?
I only teasing you.
Yes, I'm thinking it. Yes.
So you've gotten vaccinated?
Are you hearing me now?
Yes,
No, not as yet.
So
not as yet.
What you waiting on?
No, let me tell you. You see, you cannot blame a lot of people for not being vaccinated, because you see, you have so much of different things going about, so much of different rumor you're hearing about this, about the vaccine, this about the vaccine, this about the vaccine. So I just wanted to know more about it before I just run into something. I won't just get up and just run to just take something if I don't know about it. And I think this is a lot of things that a lot of people not being vaccinated, because some of the leaders out there not coming and explain and do the job like how they're supposed to do it. All of this coming and tell you, you need to be vaccinated, you need to be vaccinated, you need to be vaccinated. But if you come down and you break it down to the littlest thumb to them, I think some people would understand. Because some of the ministers, when they come in, they're using big words. And some of the people who understand big words, like you go say thief, and they'll go back and say embezzlement. Just come and tell the younger people thief. So we go, you break it down to the lowest. And it's true, we're laughing, but it's the truth. Not everybody might understand certain big words that they use. So if you break it down to the lower term to some of the people out there and make them understand more about the vaccine, then a lot of people might be going and take the vaccine. And instead of trying to make it mandatory and stick it down to certain people truth and certain different religion don't believe the vaccine, them to be vaccinated. So there's a lot of things to be done about the ministers, and some of the leaders need to be more with the people and come out to the people instead of only staying on a TV. And we know it's very dangerous out there right now to be interacting with the people, but let the people know more about the vaccine, because there's a lot of different news you're hearing about it. You're hearing that people they're sticking things on their arm, people getting blood clot, people being paralyzed. So come on, you don't just get up and just run and take something. But that experience I've been through, I don't think I want to be through anymore. So I think I'll be taking the Pfizer, whatever the name of it, in the next 2 weeks.
So can we do a hand clap? Yes, Wendy Ann is very proud of you and she's very happy. So she's giving a hand clap for that. Chris,
I promise myself to go look for Wendy Ann when I come up and maybe sometime soon. It's like somewhere like I just know Miss Wendy Ann face, like I met Miss Wendy Ann somewhere, maybe in the same mass thing, but like somewhere I met Miss Wendy Ann before. Your face look very familiar. And when I come to Jamaica, I have to come look for Chris.
Yeah, man, definitely.
We have the fraternity.
Make sure you're fully vaccinated first, though,
I'm fully vaccinated, Chris. I'm come look for you.
All right.
My wife is a Jamaican, so I'm come look for you.
Yeah, man, definitely.
So we're getting ready.
It's nice to know.
Go ahead.
it's nice to know, we could all meet right, on this same platform and that we could grin and laugh about the experience that we've been through, because it's only God that have us here right now. And we have to give God thanks and praise and put him first in everything that we do, because
True.
on my bus right now, my van outside right now, I have a sign up with a hand up, mark life over death. And this means a lot to me. I mean, life is something that a lot of people, we don't cherish it. We just go by today and get up, go to sleep by today. I mean, everybody have the way about them, but I believe in God. Since I know myself, I believe in God. I do pray every time. I mean, you have times you go to bed and forget to pray, but as long as I remember, I pray one time. I can be driving and I forget in the morning, I make sure I pray, because without the Most High, there's nothing to be going for, or he is the only one who can make things go up the hill. And what I've been through, I mightn't say I'm close to God as Miss Wendy and say she gets so close to God, but I'm closer to God than the way I was far behind. I'm not that far behind anymore.
Right.
And I just say again, it's only God to know that we all are like it.
Thank you so much for that, Richard. Chris, we're getting ready to wrap it up tonight. We're on the nose of 10 o'clock. For the people who believe in their culture and think it should take precedence over all else, you want to say what to the Grenadian people about probably getting vaccinated, Chris?
Jamaica has its own share of anti-vaxxers and pro-vaxxers. We're struggling ourselves. As a matter of fact, if you look at the chart in the Caribbean, Jamaica is among the lower level of persons who are vaccinated. So we have a lower percentage of vaccination in Jamaica. I think we're somewhere around about 10-15% now, which is crazy. I mean, for us to get to herd immunity, that's going to be a long road. I'm vaccinated, fully vaccinated, thanks. And most of the persons who I care a lot about, they are also fully vaccinated. I spent a lot of time trying to convince persons to get vaccinated because it's the right thing to do. I spent a lot of time educating people on vaccine and how it works based on my understanding. I spent a lot of time comparing vaccination today in comparison to vaccination back then. The Caribbean and Jamaica led the way when it comes to vaccine back in the 1950s when we had polio, we had tetanus and all those other shots that we had to get. And if you look at the World Health Organization website today, Jamaica is still one of the poster childs for vaccine back in the 1950s and measles and all that stuff. So I tend to say to persons, if you fear vaccine now, then you would have feared it then. Persons will ask and will come with the argument to say that the vaccine today is different from the vaccine then. And I'll quickly remind them that there's really no difference. Is it going to take you the same amount of time to make a car today like it took you back in the 1940s? Why would you expect vaccine manufacturers to take the same amount of time to make a vaccine today like it would take them 25 years ago? I think the government on a whole, and I can speak to Jamaica in particular, Jamaican government, they did very, very well in promoting COVID-19. They did an excellent job in keeping the country aware of what COVID is, educating the society. I think we lost the fight a little bit as it relates to the vaccine itself. Richard just spoke a while ago about some of the concerns that persons have about what is the vaccine, what is inside the vaccine, how was it manufactured. I think we blundered, and lots of countries in the Caribbean, they are paying the price today for not educating the societies on what the vaccine is. They did a very good job at educating people on COVID, the virus. But then the vaccine comes and we fell asleep. Nobody went out there to make the comparison with vaccine today as opposed to immunization back in the 1960s and 70s. So we lost the fight. And the anti-vaxxers, when there's a vacuum, when there's a void in communication, then something else is going to fill that void. And I think when the government failed to come out and adequately inform people about vaccine, then the anti-vaxxers came out and they filled that void. So the government of the Caribbean, the government of the islands, including Grenada, Jamaica, they have to take responsibility for the low turnout in accepting and understanding the vaccine, because they had a responsibility to make sure that persons were properly educated about vaccine as much as they were educated about the virus.
Great. And our producer has reminded me that we were off to a little late start because of the issues we had with a lightning strike earlier today. So he's granted us another 5 minutes. One of the things he's reminded me is that we've had some statistics on vaccination rates in the region, and we would want to get to that quickly to make sure that we don't leave it out. And the latest dashboard we have, we are at 130 deaths. Confirmed cases, 5,005. Imported cases, 129. 3,080 people listed as recovered. And the number of cases currently in hospital, we have 70 people. The number of deaths gone up to 130. Let's just take that quick feature and we'll come back and we'll do a wrap-up.
Vaccination is extremely effective against the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. Globally, as of the 24th of September 2021, there have been over 230 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and over 4.7 million deaths. In the region of the OECS, there have been over 123,000 cases across the protocol and associate member states. And over the 2-year pandemic, most of the cases and deaths in our region occurred within the last 2 months. There have been significant increases in confirmed cases in Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Lucia, Grenada, and Anguilla. The waves of COVID infections translate into waves of severe illness, hospitalization, and deaths. However, where vaccine rates are high, severe illness, hospitalization, and deaths remain relatively low, even during a COVID spike in transmission. Since the COVID-19 vaccines became available, countries are in a race to vaccinate their populations. The more developed countries have greater access to vaccines, with the levels of and higher levels of vaccine acceptance. Our World in Data provides interactive, customized graphics, which tracks the vaccination rates by country relative to population over time. Within the OECS, Anguilla is the most vaccinated of the OECS countries, with approximately 60% of its population fully vaccinated. This is followed by British Virgin Islands, with approximately 45% of its population fully vaccinated. Next, St. Kitts and Nevis, with 41% of its population fully vaccinated. Next, Antigua and Barbuda with 37%, Dominica with 29%, Montserrat 28%, Grenada 18%, St. Lucia 16%, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines 12% of their population fully vaccinated.
And again, that is an excerpt from A Dose of Facts, and that was aired last evening. It was produced by the ABS, Antigua Broadcasting Service. Our friend there, Garfield Bufford, who sometimes serves as the co-host for Beyond the Headlines, he was a producer on that program. And very interesting information there. The figures that she gave, I was up until the 24th. What we have from the Ministry of Health here in Grenada, that the number of persons vaccinated first dose, 34,023. Number of persons vaccinated second dose, 23,144. So we have a very long way to go. And Wendy Ann, we are closing out with you this evening. What is your word to the Grenadian public, especially as it relates to getting vaccinated?
My word to the Grenadian public is please reconsider. I know you think the vaccine can cause blood clot, but we can get blood clot from anything. We can get blood clot from birth control pills. Some of the younger people out there, birth control pills can give you a blood clot, okay? Surgery can give you a blood clot. You can get all these things. So worrying about blood clot is the least of your problems right now, because if you get COVID, there's a high % chance that you will not survive. Or the after effects. I'm still having shortness of breath. It's been over a year and I'm still having it. So I just want you guys to think about it, and don't be ignorant. Just think that which is more important, life. I saw this week on Facebook, as a matter of fact, somebody said they'd rather die before they take the vaccine. I mean, take it into consideration, read up on it. If you need more information, ask questions. But to just say, I'm not taking the vaccine because it has this side effect and it has that side effect, everything has side effects. So just, rethink. And, I encourage everyone, please get vaccinated. I think it's the best way.
Thank you so much for that. Richard, I have an advisory here for you coming up on our Facebook page. Richard, you're a bus driver, you're serving the public, you should be vaccinated. So, Richard, you need to act on that promptly.
Ms. William, after the virus, how long after before you take?
Sorry, say that again?
After you've been free from the virus, how long after you're supposed to wait?
Okay. There's no period. Don't let anybody tell you that, my brother. I had COVID and got over it, and I took my vaccination within less than a month after COVID, like probably 2 weeks after. I got my vaccination. The first set of vaccine that came to Jamaica, which was perhaps a few weeks after I got COVID, I took my vaccine, and I'm still here today, alive and well. So that myth is an argument and an excuse. Take it, man. Stay alive. Let's get back to life. Get vaccinated.
Right.
I will be.
Wendy, I see you have a quizzical look on your forehead. You wanted to say something to Richard? Okay, great. All right. As we close it out this evening, just 2 notes. We want to be certain that it is known in the public domain that we here at the GBN do not advocate for simply relying on your herbs and staying at home and not going to the hospital if you're sick. The medical experts have said get medical attention, do not sit at home and then wait until it's too late. And also the updated figures that we have, 24.68% of the population, vaccinated of the population, eligible for vaccination. So the number of people eligible in Grenada for vaccination, 93,763. We're up to 24.68. Let's border on 25% of the population has been vaccinated. The number of deaths, 130. The active cases, 1,795. The new cases, 83. Fully vaccinated, 23,144. Vaccine first dose, 34,023. And that is where we bring the curtains down on tonight's program. Some really touching testimonies from 3 of our COVID survivors who we've had live with us. Wendy Ann McGuire, she's a family nurse practitioner. Wendy, before we go, where in Grenada are you from? Wendy Ann?
I'm from St. Andrews, Ladigue to be specific.
Ladigue, St. Andrews. So I think Josephine McGuire might be happy to say, that's my family.
That's my family. All the McGuires are related in Grenada. They're all one family.
So thank you so much for that, Mr. Christopher McCurdy, the producer out of Jamaica. And I promised at the start of the program that I'd say what his nickname is. I'm leaving that up to you. Chris.
The name is Chopper John.
Where you get that?
Everybody calls me Chopper.
Chopper, right? And we have our dear friend Richard Boca. He's a survivor. Richard, you're from Boca in St. George?
Yes.
Richard Boca from Boca in St. George. Richard is somebody who I think we're going to find and hold his hand personally tomorrow and drag him. not kicking and screaming, gently lead him. Jesus, like a shepherd, lead us. We would take Richard and go and get him vaccinated tomorrow.
But I have a quick question for Richard, though. You know, I'd love to ask. He said he's waiting on the Pfizer. I'm curious to know why.
Pfizer is here, so it is here. It's available now.
The best vaccine is the one that's available, my brother.
It's available.
All right, man. I'll be shortly vaccinated.
All right, sir.
Richard, I'm coming down tomorrow to take you to get vaccinated. Is that okay?
Yeah, take a plane tonight and come.
Come? You're going to get vaccinated if I come?
I call you personal.
Thank you very much. And to all of you as listeners, thank you again for really traveling with us and embarking on this journey. It's been one of exploration. Wendy, thank you so much. Chris, we appreciate. And Richard, our very good friend that we've met tonight. Thank you so much, Richard. He had a hard day today. We were trying to do the test earlier, and he said, you know, I have to rush and get home. I don't think I could take a shower. Just let your secret out of the bag. But in the interest of, you know, enlightening all of us, and I think it's been a very rich experience. Thank you so much to all of you and to our viewers and listeners for another compelling edition of Beyond the Headlines. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again next Monday, the Lord's willing. I'm Odette Campbell. We'll see you again.